There is a danger to this, and we have to realize this. It's one person can theoretically reach millions of people. And if you write inflammatory stuff all the time, you're going to get a lot of hits, but you're not going, and you can influence a lot of people. Even if you get 1 million hits, and if you influence 1,000 people the wrong way, that's bad news.
Tonight I have two special guests, as you can see. I have sitting immediately to my left, C.J. Summers, and to his left, Billy Dennis.
Nice to be here.
Gentlemen, welcome to Captions.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
So glad to have an opportunity to kind of talk about a topic that I personally am not that familiar with, but I understand that you're bloggers. And I'd like to talk about what is a blogger, and who are you, and how did you get involved in such a thing called blogging? So let me start with you, CJ. What is a blogger?
Well, a blog is it's short for weblog, and it's just basically a website that you can set up yourself, and you can post your thoughts on there. They're in usually date order, and the most recent posts are on top, and all of your previous posts are on there, so you can kind of see the chain of thought. And people can comment on the posts if they want to, and you can talk about whatever you want. Some people talk about their personal lives, other people talk about politics and stuff like that. Bill here, we call him the blog father because he was the first one to have a blog. So he could probably tell you a little more of the history.
Yeah, Billy, share with me.
I was reading an article on pointer.com about this wonderful new thing called weblogging. They said, well, you can write a post, hit the publish button on the site you're writing on, and your post will be published for the entire world to see. Well, that was just it for me. I had to try it out, and I started putting my first post in like the year 2000, and it just took off from there. Just been writing ever since.
So it's kind of an electronic billboard, a message center, a way of expressing your thoughts and getting back thoughts?
Yeah, it is. Well, the essence of blogging is you make a post and then other people comment on them. And I remember my first comment, that was just amazing that people were reading my stuff. It's like I got, well, there's one comment, there's one, and it just took off from there. It's just amazing. I have more freedom doing this than I ever did writing editorials for newspapers.
You can have your own little town hall. I got started into blogging because I read Billy's blog, and he was actively promoting people starting their own blogs. And it was real easy because there are services out there that let you start one for free, things like Blogger and WordPress and stuff like that. So I just went out and thought, well, I'll give it a try, and I didn't know how long it would last, and so I just got hooked on it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Are there any particular kinds of topics or issues that you focus on specifically, or are you just wide open for anything and everything?
Well,
from recipes on how to make fried chicken, what's going on in Peoria as far as the so-called race riots?
Oh, well, yeah, you want to talk about the race riot.
Well,
go ahead, CJ, talk about the race riot.
Oh, well.
Would that have been on a blog that either one of you sent out or that you received wondering what's going on in Peoria?
Yeah, that's something that can be on blogs. It can be anything you want it to be about. I cover mostly City of Peoria stuff, and specifically like the City Council, although I also talk about the county and the school board and to some extent the Park District. It's kind of evolved over the years. I used to have more breadth of topics, but I mostly focus on the council these days.
I used to focus on the City Council. Now I have paradoxically, I've started writing about other things and putting on my blog as well. I write about City Council and things like that, but I also post pictures and YouTube videos and anything I find of interest. I have more than one blog. I blog at Peoria Pundit, and all these other blogs that I have that are basically focused on one subject.
So Peoria Pundit is like your name?
Oh yeah, it's the name of my blog. I'm not Peoria Pundit. My blog is Peoria Pundit.
Okay.
But that's fine if people want to call me Peoria Pundit. That's okay.
what
They don't
about-
call him Peoria Chronicle.
and you go under Peoria
Peoria
Chronicle.
Chronicle, and I just have one blog, so I focus all my energy on that.
And now that we're talking, how would a person out there who's probably ignorant like me, how would they even get into your blog? I assume you got to have a computer of some type
Yeah.
or get on the internet.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through how people can find your so-called blog?
Well, you just type in the address bar and the URL of the blog, which is Uniform Resource Locator, the name of the blog.
Okay.
And you can type Peoria Pundit and go there. You can type PeoriaChronicle.com and go there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty easy to find if you're out there looking around for blogs. If you find one blog, you'll find them all because we all link to each other.
Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. See, I'm from old school. We thought we were doing something. We had the church bulletin.
There you go.
or the neighborhood news sheet.
There you
But
go.
now, because of modern technology and so forth, you can reach, I assume, the whole world
Yeah,
Yeah.
through
absolutely.
what you say and do.
It's
which to me can make you dangerous because anybody can have access almost to say anything. There's no big brother is there that controls what goes on or what doesn't go on.
It requires people to be media savvy, but I think people over time have gotten media savvy. You know, they know who they can trust and who they can't trust, who's a reliable source on the internet, who's not a reliable source. And I think people have been doing that
Well,
with
how would
media
you
for a
know
long
that?
time.
How would you know that?
People
If-
give
if-
more credence to the New York Times than they do to the National Enquirer, for instance. People, after you read a few articles from these things, you get a sense of whether how reputable they are. And I think it's the same thing with blogs. You have your own reputation that's on the line.
And that's exactly true. But Andre's right. There is a danger to this, and we have to realize this. It's one person can theoretically reach millions of people. And if you write inflammatory stuff all the time, you're going to get a lot of hits. But you're not going, and you can influence a lot of people. Even if you get 1 million hits, and if you influence 1,000 people the wrong way,
Right.
that's bad news.
Right.
But if you get like 1,000 hits, but you have a good reputation, it's a
But what
good
determines
effect.
your reputation?
But that's true in all media. I mean, Rupert
Yeah.
Murdoch can reach millions and millions of people, and
Well,
Yeah.
how
he may
would,
not
how
be the
would
most
the world know
reputable.
anything about Billy or CJ? So how would they know anything about a reputation?
Well, I've got
Have
an
to read
about
you.
link on my site, so people can read about me. But yeah, over time, people will come to know you, because of the way you write and what you write about, and and the comments that you allow on your blog about your reputation. So if you're a bad blogger, you'll be found out. If you're a good blogger, you'll be found out. And there's always those 1 or 2 people out there that will who will not believe what you say, but there's always the other people who will.
And you
They
that's
get to
all
know
with
you by your
everything.
body of work, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, by reading your work, they get to know you. I mean, I've been blogging since 2005, and Billy's been blogging since 2000. So we have a big body of work that people can read and get to know, whether we're, reputable
Whether
sources or
we're
not.
fools or
Yeah,
not,
right.
basically.
Can each of you give me an example of one of your recent blogs that you may have sent out as it either raised the city government or the city, whatever topic? I mean, can you give me an example, like what would you have sent out that you'd have found worthy or trustworthy to put out there on the electronic media?
Well, I recently did a post on the growth cell report that the city recently put together.
Okay.
And, I had some real questions I read through the growth cell report, and I had some real questions about their methodology. And
Okay.
so I went through the report and talked about some of the methods that I found questionable and why that was so, and then I wanted to give my readers the opportunity to kind of respond to that. So
Great.
that's an example. That's something I don't see happening in the mainstream media, unfortunately, that used to happen. They don't. They just take things that the city gives at face value and report on it and say, here's what the city said,
Right.
but don't really have any critical analysis of it. So that's what I try to provide.
I've written about recently the whole Murdoch situation, about how that newspaper chain is kind of falling apart now because they got caught in this scandal. But for those people who don't know, the News of the World was caught hacking into people's phones, and in some cases erasing messages, and causing the law enforcement authorities in England all sorts of problems. And that the scandal keeps growing and growing, and people in the British government are getting kicked out of office. And it's causing some bad things to happen to Murdoch's news empire, and it's starting to reach over here. I'm kind of thinking that perhaps we ought to hold WMBD accountable to some extent for broadcasting Fox News as its choice of news.
You're talking about the radio WMBD,
the radio WMBD
not TV.
1470. Yeah, they're broadcasting Fox News. Now, WMBD 1470 doesn't have to broadcast Fox News. They can broadcast anybody. And I kind of like that station to think about a little bit. So I've been writing about that.
Well, I personally have problems with WMBD News because I know in the mornings between Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, I feel that they reach millions of people, not through WMBD, but nationally, that have certainly some definite points of view that I find troubling at times and find destructive at times. And for many people, if they hear it on the radio and they keep hearing it, they begin to believe it.
Well, the thing is, they have these shows, and they only show the shows that are like this, and they have no diversity in their viewpoint, none at all. And it's kind of difficult for people who just listen to this.
But then some people would say the same thing about NPR or the New York Times.
NPR
they would say they have
a variety
a very
of news.
leftist viewpoint, and so you don't get a variety of views. You would never hear a view like you'd hear on Rush Limbaugh's show on NPR.
You do hear what Rush Limbaugh thinks on NPR, because when they cover Rush Limbaugh, they have his point of view. And then they have the people who are opposite of his point of view on there, and then people who have a middle ground. That's why NPR has a good reputation as a news source. And they have many reporters on NPR who are constantly providing news and opinion from both sides, all three sides of the issue.
So, I guess it kind of scares me that some people, whatever they read in the newspaper, they'll believe. And more people read a newspaper and hear the news than read the Bible or hear something that might be positive, or the Koran or whatever. And that we're flooded with electronic media, the paper media, and now you're telling me that bloggers can send out anything, any little quirk. Some little dude in Massachusetts can send out something that may be totally far out, and people will get it and may tend to repeat it and whatever. In fact, I'm not certain, but I think regarding this little so-called riot in Peoria that supposedly made the national news, I was wondering, well, how, first of all, would that have made the national news? And then I heard something that there was a blogger that may have got it started, whether it was true or not. I mean, I'll be honest, that concerns me, that upsets me, that we can have that kind of power. But, you know, we live in a world now where whatever happens, any place, you know about it within minutes or hours or 24 hours. And I don't know whether the world is worse or we just have better reporting or everybody knows about it.
Well, you had a situation with the so-called race riot. That was my blog, Peoria Chronicle, and I had a reader of my blog that wrote me at like 2 in the morning about an incident that happened in his neighborhood. And his, you know, the tone of his letter was more about the lack of police protection, because one of the things that we constantly argue about in Peoria is that they're always cutting basic services and they're cutting police protection, but they have plenty of money for these big ideas, you know, the hotel downtown and these big capital projects. And so when he wrote me, you know, he wrote me in the middle of the night and said, you know, this just happened, and I considered him a credible source, you know, because I know the guy. He wasn't just some stranger that wrote me. And he said, you know, there was this large group of kids that came through the neighborhood, and they were running on lawns, and they were making a lot of noise, and people felt threatened, and people were calling the police, and some of them, and he heard them calling, you know, kill all the white people. Now that was the part, you know, the kill all the white people part was the part that caught apparently the eye of people who work for a national blogger named Matt Drudge. And so when I put this up on my site, this other site called the Drudge Report, which is a national blog, picked it up and put it on their site, and that's how it went national.
Yeah, we'll see.
Now see, the thing is with national, I feel like personally that they really took the whole thing out of context, because that wasn't the context of what my blog is about. My blog is about local issues and you know, issues involving the city council and how we use our resources. It wasn't about whether there were racial things that were yelled or not. It was about people behaving in the neighborhoods and people feeling like they can live in security. But this national site felt like they have their own political axe to grind, that they think there's some sort of national problem with race riots all over, and that this was an example of it happening in Peoria. And so they took it and ran with it. And you know, some people want to hold me responsible for that, but I kind of chafe at that, because I don't think that I could have ever foreseen that being taken by Matt Drudge and made into a separate national issue.
Well,
now
but
Billy has a different view on that.
well, something similar happened with this story. There was some firefighters were hit with fireworks down at Taft Homes.
Right.
And this Journal Star ran a photograph of the actual firework going off near the firefighter. And that was a very dramatic photo. And this story is a legitimate story. It has, it's very infuriating incident that people would attack firefighters when they're down trying to help people by putting out this dumpster fire. Now, Fox Nation ran the story, but as their photograph to accompany this story, they ran a photograph of a bombed out car in Iraq, and the headline says "Mortar Attack of Firemen," not firefighters attacked with mortar style fireworks, which is what the story said. Mortar attack on firemen. Now that's what now the badness is in this was started by a national news chain. Not one of these local bloggers, a national news chain, a gatekeeper, a company that exists to like tell us what's news. And they blew it. They completely blew it.
Well, as I said, I guess being 70 years old and having seen people huddled around a radio, and then a little small black and white TV, and then a TV with like cellophane, red, yellow, and green, called television, color TV, and then, I mean, we've come so far in terms of our advancements, in terms of getting words out, that it can be very misleading, it can be very dangerous, it can be very destructive, and as I said, some people tend to believe whatever they hear or whatever they see or probably whatever they read on the blog. And as I said, we can reach insurmountable amount of minds and people today that years ago nobody would have had any clue what happened on, whether it was the east side of Peoria or whatever, and whether it was a group of kids versus a gang of kids, and whether they were unruly versus unruly. But somebody can get on either locally or nationally, or mislead by having a picture of something that's over in the Far East and attribute that to what was going on in Peoria. And it bothers me.
Andre, the cure for bad speech is good speech.
Or no speech at all. I'm almost to the point where maybe we'd be better off if we didn't hear as much as we hear, because a lot of what we hear isn't based on any kind of fact or anything of benefit. We seem to dwell on the negative.
I don't want to live in a world where we don't have the good speech or the bad speech. I think that we have to put up with the bad speech in order to get the good speech, and we need the good speech, because
overcome evil with good.
Overcome evil with good, exactly.
Well, I'm not promoting that, but I can tell you there was a time in America, there's been a time in my life where we didn't have as much so-called freedom of access to speech, and I don't think that we were worse off then than we are today. So I don't know.
Well, I don't
If we
think you
were
can put that genie back in the
responsible and if
bottle.
we were accountable, then I would feel much better. But so much that goes on is misleading. And as I said, we've gone from some little wacko in our neighborhood, or some little racist in our neighborhood, or some black power person in our neighborhood can reach people and put everything out of proportion in terms of what it really represents, in terms of what the true feelings or what the true situation may be in that situation or in that city. Just like somebody can put on the blog, I guess, Mayor of Peoria shot.
Oh boy, yeah.
And turn out the real story was he got a pneumonia shot, you know, or those kinds of things. And as I said, that is there any monetary value that you can get from running blogs, or does it cost you anything to blog other than just your normal access to the internet?
It depends. You can be as... when I started out, it didn't cost me anything other than an internet connection, because I put my blog on Blogger. But then when I decided to do...
a self-hosted blog.
Yeah, a self-hosted blog. Then I now have a fee for a hosting fee, which is minimal. I mean, it's like $6 or $7 a month. And the software is free and stuff, so it's a minimal cost. And I don't run any advertisements or anything on my blog. I do it as kind of a community service. But Billy does monetize his site.
Yeah, I spend about $71 a month.
Okay.
Because I host many blogs, not just my own, but other people's. And I try to recoup a little bit from advertising.
Okay.
And that is, those dollars are very few and far behind this during this economic downturn. I'm not making any money from it.
Right. And I'm not implying whether that's good, bad, or what. I'm
Well, I
just
think it's
interested
good.
because it's, you know, it's the new so-called media, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll ever replace anything like newspapers or the news or anything? Do you think one day it might become the master switch of how people communicate?
Blogging, no. Blogging is never going to replace journalism, because blogging isn't journalism. It's a form of citizen journalism. Some blogs are run by citizen journalists, but it's the citizen journalism is a different kind of journalism. You're always going to need the mainstream media, and the idea is we want the citizen journalists want the mainstream media to clean up their act a bit, and to be a little bit more ethical, and to I guess the word is that we want them to clean up their act, and that's why we're doing this.
And
Well,
blogs
this
are
is
usually
interesting,
hosted.
and I'm getting some signals. We're going to
Okay.
take a short break, but when I come back, I'd like to maybe continue our discussion and talk about some of the issues that you think are worthy of blogs, or that you've used on your blogs, or that people tend to be sending you on blogs. So for those that are watching, I hope you're as interested in blogging as I am, and we're going to continue our discussions, and please come back, because we'll be right back.
Dennis Egelmeyer here. We're at the City of Peoria with Steve Fairbanks, who is a Community Development Specialist, to tell us about the big annual event that always comes up in the beginning of August. Steve, tell us all about it.
Okay, this is August 2nd. It's the National Night Out Against Crime. And in Peoria, what neighborhoods do is they basically host big block parties to celebrate their neighborhoods and to have games and fun and food and drink. And really to make it's really make a statement that the neighborhood is really out there and active.
And of course, the name implies we're trying to find a way to let criminals know that these neighborhoods will not stand for crime.
Right. One of the things about Night Out Against Crime is to show that the neighborhoods and the neighbors are active, and that they're friendly and they communicate with each other, and they're out there for them, for the neighborhood and for the children in the neighborhood, because crime flourishes in neighborhoods where there's a feeling like nobody is in charge and nobody cares. So the part of the point of Night Out Against Crime is for people to come out and be neighborly and bring the kids out and have fun, have party, you know, and really that's the point of it. Also, we have the sheriff's department. Sometime if you can catch them early, they'll bring the deputies out on horseback and that. I wanted to also mention that the City of Peoria offers to registered neighborhood associations reimbursement of up to $250 for food, games, anything related to your Night Out Against Crime event.
About how many associations normally participate in this event?
Normally we go between 25 to 35 neighborhood associations. Right now, as of this taping, we're at 26 neighborhood associations, and there are 3 collaborations within those 26. So what we've offered to encourage neighborhoods that are nearby each other to collaborate is we'll offer them reimbursement of up to $275 each for their night out event. So if they work together and have one big event, that will be beneficial to them because they can get a little more money for their food and drinks and jumping gyms and all that other kind of stuff.
If there are other neighborhood associations watching, can they still get in and apply to be part of this event?
Yes, the deadline to register is July 22nd. The reason we have that deadline is because within a week and a half or so is the event, and we need to get all the information out to the media and to the public and to the city council representatives and the mayor, and they all need to be aware of where these events are because they all make an attempt to visit every event. So if a group is not registered by July 22nd, if they would call me, and if they can get it done pretty quickly, we'll get them on the list and they can become qualified. Now keep in mind that you have to be a registered neighborhood association with the city of Peoria. So I can help you with that, and if your association isn't registered right now, it's probably not going to be in time for the Night Out Against Crime event, but call me anyway.
Tell us about these other things that you are involved with besides National Night Out. You are encouraging Business Watch and, of course, always a Neighborhood Watch.
What we've been doing for the last several years is working with residents to establish Neighborhood Watch in their neighborhoods, and that has taken off like there's been an explosion of Neighborhood Watch groups in Peoria because the residents see it as a tool to come out and do something really constructive and active in their neighborhood. It's not always in response to a crime event or anything like that, but usually people are saying we just want to make sure that our neighborhood stays kind of nice and the way it has been. There are some neighborhoods, though, they call because there's been burglaries or things like that. But really, Neighborhood Watch is really sort of another way to, in a long term, to get neighbors to kind of collaborate with each other and get to know each other and, make their neighborhood safer.
And what about the Business Watch?
The Business Watch is the same concept as Neighborhood Watch, except what we're trying to do is find area business zones that businesses can collaborate with each other, get to know each other, and also learn some things about being vigilant and looking out for crime and nuisance that may occur in their business property to prevent crime and nuisance. And we have one that we're working on and working with the businesses on in the Glen Oak School neighborhood on the East Bluff, and it's just in the kind of budding stages there. But if there's any other business areas or businesses that are interested in this, let me know. We'll provide them with Business Watch signs, and we'll have the police department involved in helping them learn some things about being vigilant and watching for crime.
And again, tell us about the date and times, approximate times for the National Night Out Against Crime, and a phone number that people can call you if they want to get involved.
Okay. The National Night Out Against Crime, it's always the first Tuesday in August nationally. And this year, August 2nd is a Tuesday night, and events usually go from 5 to 8 or 9 o'clock. It's the neighborhood association's choice as to what time they want to have, but it's always in the evening. And they should just call 494-8603. That's me, Steve Fairbanks, 494-8603, and I will work with them in getting a registration to them and also a reimbursement form so they can send their receipts to me after the event and get paid if that's what they'd like.